For my final project, I did a look at clustering of NHL players from 2022-23 through the 2024-2025 season. All the data comes from evolvinghockey.com, and I looked at NHL skaters from the previous 3 complete seasons, 2022-23 through 2024-25, and used box score stats such as goals, assists, points, on-ice stats such as expected goals, as well as goals, and WAR values. I filtered the data to players who have played a minimum of 60 games over the course of the 3 selected seasons. So what do I want to see? I want to view the different tiers of players in the NHL. There can be a consensus of the top players in the league from media and players alike, but what separates them? What players are better at play driving, expected goals for, and what players are better at suppressing offense, expected goals against. So from the data I viewed, I brought in three separate categories: box stats, play driving stats, and measures of player performance. I took all that data in 3 separate data sets and brought it all into one data set, selecting the specific columns I wanted to use. So the shared columns across all of them were player, season, team, position, and games played. And then the differentiating columns were time on ice total, goals, assists, points, goals above expected, time on ice, all, offensive GAR, defensive GAR, GAR, WAR, SPAR, time on ice in all situations, goals for per 60, goals against per 60, expected goals for per 60, and expected goals against per 60. So the first step was using the hierarchy clustering, step 1, and from this I was able to find that from k equals 6 to k equals 7 there was a jump up in percentage. So as it rises back up, that's where I want my clustering to be focused on, so I used k equals 6 for clustering. In step 2, next was the creation of a radial plot, and from this, with k equals 6 clusters, cluster 5 had an extremely high chi value, meaning this is subject to a lot of variance. Cluster 2 and cluster 6 had goals against per 60 at above average. Cluster 1 and 3 where defensive GAR is above average. And then in cluster 4, goals for per 60, goals against per 60, expected goals for per 60, and expected goals against per 60 were all above average. So I wanted to look, there were too many players within the data set to look at a cluster tree, so I wanted to look at play driving of players and plotting that using a bubble plot, and taking a look at how much offense do they create and how much do they suppress. So the best players are focused in the top right quadrant. Patrice Bergeron was a perennial Selke candidate, let alone a perennial Selke winner, and consistently, year in and year out, known as the best defensive forward in the game. His offensive play driving was still at an elite level, and then we see players like Connor McDavid, Evan Bouchard, and Zach Hyman of the Edmonton Oilers, who are underrated for their defensive ability, where their value defensively comes from how much they control the puck when they are on the ice. One of the things is the best offense is played 200 feet from your own net, and as these players play extremely well on the ice together, they keep the puck far away from their own net. And Sidney Crosby, still even in his old age, still generates a lot offensively despite lacking a bit defensively. In quadrant 2 is where you'll find your two-way stalwarts. Quadrant 1 and 3 are going to be players that excel at one end of the ice, either offensively or defensively. And then the players who get cratered when they're on the ice and are liabilities, give up a lot, don't generate much, they're found in quadrant 4. So then this is a plot of the actual goals. How often are players giving up goals when they're on the ice, and how many goals are they scoring for their team on the ice? And even when it comes to actual results, Bergeron is even in a further tier of his own, separating himself from the pack. He was not only good at play driving, where he was limiting chances against and generating a lot of quality opportunities for, but he also reflected that on the scoreboard as well. And Connor McDavid we see lower in this tier when it comes to actual results against in the goals against per 60, and much of this is due to the poor goaltending that has been in Edmonton for the last 3 seasons. They have not had a strong goaltending duo, and despite the team being top 3 in expected goal share, their actual results are something that has lagged behind at times during the season because of the shaky goaltending. And again, we see Crosby and McDavid excel tremendously offensively, but give up a bit more defensively. And again, some of this can be due to poor goaltending in their own end. So we look at many players that are tremendous in the league, and simple box score stats these days are inconclusive. They don't provide a full context as to what is going on out there. And as we dig further below the surface, we're able to get a broader view of what players excel at in each area and see where we can group players. What players are two-way stalwarts, what players are strictly offensive guided, what players are defensively guided, and get a better view, something that can be utilized in end of season awards as well. Thank you.